Ross is not a new face on our program. We've met in London where he gave us his expert advice on some beautiful classic cars in a show we attended together. But today we're here in what he refers to as his train room. And we're going to talk about this hobby of model trains.
Okay, all right. Well, the great thing about model trains is they don't break down as often as classic cars. So, this hobby of mine has started a long time ago. My father was interested in these model trains. Most of them were made in the 30s and the 50s, and they're all English, what we call outline stock.
How did this passion for model trains come about?
Well, it's a little bit like classic cars. When your father likes classic cars, there's a pretty good chance that you'll follow in his footsteps. And from the earliest days, I remember my father had a model train collection of this scale, which is quite a bit bigger than the normal scale. It first started off in the loft of his old Victorian house, and then it moved to a massive shed in the bottom of the garden. And little by little I got interested, and then one day he died, but before he died he sold his whole collection without telling me. And so what I've been doing is pretty much trying to put it back together, and I've managed to purchase a lot of the locomotives and carriages that he actually owned.
You actually showed me a book, if I can bring it over, that actually shows how long ago his interest started.
My mother gave this to my father for Christmas in 1955, and it's inscribed, "My darling Neil, with much love, Teresa." Actually, I found this, my father had given it to someone, and one day this person found me and gave it to me. So it's history going around and coming around.
How rare are... So, I mean, what is the oldest piece in your collection?
Okay, well, some of the locomotives were made in the early 1930s. I'm not talking about the original locomotives which were rolling on the rail tracks in the UK, but the actual models I have, some of them were made by a company called Bassett-Lowke in the 1930s, some of them in the 1950s. Most of the carriages that you see going around were made by a company called Exley in the 1950s. And I guess the star of the show is this one here, which you can see going around now. This locomotive was made by Bassett-Lowke in 1953, and it's in perfect original condition in its original paint. Don't want to bore you, but there you go. And I guess it's the star of the collection.
I don't think this hobby is very, very common here in Malta, but what about the UK?
Well, it's reasonably common in the UK in comparison with Malta, but it's still very rare because the problem is that you need quite a lot of space to run this scale of locomotives and carriages, and also it's quite expensive, so it does mean that most people, for one reason or other, cannot attain it. But I think this is, in fact, I'm fairly sure, that unique in Malta.
Nicholas Dakin, who's also a collector and an enthusiast. How long ago did you pick this hobby up?
I suppose in boyhood, I had a train set which sort of chased its tail. And in fact, I remember my first train set. I had my tonsils out when I was about 6 years old. And when I came back out of hospital...
It was the consolation prize?
That's right. My parents had bought me a model train. It wasn't this size, of course. It was smaller. I can remember these trains, the full 12...
These are actually replicas of actual trains?
The one that's coming around now is a London North Eastern Railways A4 Pacific from 1935. My interest is entirely in the imagination. It's romantic and nostalgic. It's irrational and it's mad. And
however, it's also interesting from a financial point of view, because a lot of these machines cost quite a bit of money.
Yes. I'm not a wealthy man. In fact, I'm a retired school teacher, and sometimes I've had it from my wife, certainly, complaining about the money. They're not an investment in financial terms, as an investment in happiness, yes. And I intend on Malta to build a railway as well. I've got one large room in an old Maltese house, which I'm hoping to set aside, my wife permitting.
But apart from the trains themselves, over here we see a beautiful setup with the scenery, the train station, etc. I imagine that is an extension of the hobby as well.
Yes, it is. For me, rather less so, but I have seen wonderful layouts which have recaptured the British countryside. If I could actually make a plug now, a wonderful layout would be the Malta Railway. I could see that being scenically a wonderful, wonderful thing. It was a delightful railway going through wonderful countryside, and it would be wonderful to recreate that now.
Nicholas, to conclude, can we go around Toby's collection and maybe you can highlight some interesting items there?
I would certainly point to this one here. It's a lovely model. It's quite a recent model of a superb streamline locomotive. It's called Coronation, and it was built in 1937 to mark the coronation of George VI. He, of course, is the king who awarded Malta the George Cross. In the 1920s until 1948, there were four main companies. One company, the London North Eastern Railway, tended to have green or blue engines. The LMS was mainly red, but that one there, which is LMS, is this special Coronation Blue. Then here, you have an example of the Great Western Railway. And this was a lovely railway. It was running west out of London, and it had brass, as you can see, a brass dome on the front there, and also a brass top funnel. And that's named after Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the great Victorian engineer of the Great Western Railway.